Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table, a show all about tabletop gaming news, community, and questions. As always, I'm your host, Jack, and let's get this show on the road. Our top story today is that Zulu's board game cafe in Washington State has been robbed. $100,000 worth of merchandise has been taken. According to the owner, the thief pried open the skylight and entered in through that hole and ended up taking all kinds of really collectible merchandise, primarily like Magic the Gathering cards and that sort of stuff. And this has been part of a really tough streak for a beloved, friendly local game store because these guys were affected by the Bothell fire a while back. So if you've ever been looking for a local game store to support, sounds like these guys could use and deserve the love. And then moving over to announcements, Plaid Hat Games announced Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. This is a worker placement game set 20 years after the events of Mary Shelley's book, where players are trying to build their own patchwork friend. And from the description, I quote, "You'll have to work fast, for body parts decompose and quickly become unusable. Even the animal bits you procure from the slaughterhouse will waste away." Sounds pleasant? Kind of like Agricola, except with extraneous body parts. And then Renegade announced that they are partnering with Skydance to publish the Altered Carbon RPG, and then Time Chase, a trick-taking game for 3 to 6 players where you have the ability to go back in time and change previous tricks. And that sounds like a really cool mechanic, but there's no word yet on whether or not Jean-Claude Van Damme has given his likeness, so this could be part of the greater action movie board game-averse. And then Days of Wonder announced Ticket to Ride London, a standalone game featuring jolly old London's buses, and popular video game series Borderlands gets its full board game debut with Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party, the card game. Interestingly, while this is the first time that Borderlands has had its own board game, it isn't the first time it's appeared in board games. A little while ago, there was a Kickstarter for a Small World expansion where Randy Pitchford shelled out some of that sweet Gearbox dough in order to put Skags as a faction in Small World. So you can check that out if you want to get your Borderlands fix in the meantime. And then for our last announcement, in an absolute defiance of the last 5 years of predictions from pretty much everyone in the board game industry that this game would end, the Fantasy Flight Games Lord of the Rings cooperative card game has a new deluxe expansion coming out, A Shadow in the East. And look, I'm biased, right? I love Tolkien stuff, but I do want to give a shout out to this game because it is so good. Not only is it a great cooperative game, it's fantastic solo, and it is one of the best card games and Tolkien games that I've ever played. All right, with that kind of gushing out of the way, I wanted to turn to our highlight and talk about Thing 12 Games' Dinos Not Assembled Kickstarter. Now, this is a family game, a first for these guys, and they've had all kinds of themes in the past, but most of them have been a little bit mature. I'm not going to have my son playing the Seals of Cthulhu just yet until he's ready to really comprehend cults of doom and destruction. You know what I mean? And so I asked Sean Epperson of Thing 12 to come on and tell us what were some of the challenges in making a game that's just as fun for adults as it is for kids.
Hi, Sean Epperson from Thing 12 Games. One of the things that can be challenging when you're designing a game that is accessible for both children and adults is the number of choices there are in the game. If there are too few, then it's going to feel like the game is holding your hand and it's kind of on rails. You don't get to make any decisions, which isn't interesting for adults. If there's too many, kids are going to get confused, and on their turn, they're just going to ask, what do I do? I'm confused. That's not fun for anything. So, for Dinosaurs Not Assembled, one of the things that we did was having the option of multiple choice when you're trying to acquire bones. Acquiring bones is the main function in the game. Now you have 2 different locations that you can acquire bones from. You can acquire more from a centralized location that's accessible to everybody, or you can acquire one by stealing it from another player. Now as a kid, you get to kind of do pattern recognition. You're looking to see, where is the bone that I really need? Is it with someone else? Is it over in the spot that's accessible to everybody? Those are pretty easy choices to make, and so kids are able to really make decisions for themselves and feel like they're driving the game. Whereas adults can look into those next level decisions If I take 2 from the center, then I might be making more bones accessible to the next player that they might actually need. Or do I need to steal 1 from someone else to try and block them from trying to do the thing they're needing to do? Those are more adult level decisions, but it allows both levels of players to be engaged in the game. Now, one of the things that is really important when designing a silo game is playtesting. You want to make sure that you playtest with lots of different ages. Just groups of adults together, groups of kids together, and a mix of adults and kids together as well, and see how everybody kind of interacts with each other. You want to see if kids are getting confused or if they're kind of bored. You want to see if adults are getting bored, if they feel like the game is kind of holding their hand, or if they're engaged as well. Lots of playtesting is needed, more so than your average game, because you're having to really hit all those different ages, different age brackets. And you want to find out, where is the cap at? Is a 5 or 4-year-old too young, or is it maybe like an 8-year-old? Trying to ascertain where your game is going to fall in line and what your design goal is. So make sure you're trying to keep those things in mind when you're looking at your game.
Thank you so much to Sean for coming on to our show and being our guest expert for this week. If you're interested in DNA, Dinos Not Assembled, then you can check it out at the link in our video description below. And that is going to take us to our question section for today. Now, I mentioned my bias for Tolkien earlier. You all know that I'm a bit of a Hobbit head. I can't help but want to check out any sort of Tolkien-themed game that I come across. It's in my blood. I can't help it. But I want to know, what are the themes or settings or even mechanics that drive you wild, that you guys are suckers for, that you can't help but want to check out? Let us know in the comments below, and let's see if there's any sort of trends that we can identify. So thank you so much for watching the Cardboard Herald's Off the Table. If you want to help this show grow, then subscribe, so that way you can stay tuned to all sorts of the good stuff that we put on this channel, especially more of this show, and of course, as always, help by spreading the word. Thank you again for watching. I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald, and I'll talk to you next week. Can you hit the heater orange button? Sorry, I should have done that in advance. And then moving over, if you enjoyed this video, we have all kinds of other reviews, interviews, and recommendations via writing, podcast, and video here on our channel and website cardboardherald.com. Our content is audience supported, so if you want to show your support, please visit our Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Cardboard Herald.